Have you ever wondered what could a potential normalization of diplomatic ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel mean for the Middle East? Well, recent signals suggest that Saudi Arabia may be warming up to this idea. Despite the recent conflict in Gaza, the winds of change appear to be blowing across the Arabian desert. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has thrown light on this, stating that talks of normalization are very much on the table. There seems to be a clear mutual interest in pursuing this path. This is a significant shift given the turbulent history that has long defined the relationship between these two nations. But it's not just about mending fences, it's about reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. It's about creating a fresh narrative in a region historically marred by conflict. However, it's important to remember that this path is not without its bumps. Saudi Arabia, for instance, is likely to demand more concessions. It's not just about shaking hands and making nice. It's about concrete steps towards lasting peace and stability. But the path to normalization may not be straightforward, as Saudi Arabia could demand more concessions. So, what could these concessions be, and how does the Saudi public feel about this potential normalization? Let's delve into this. Saudi Arabia, historically a strong advocate for Palestine, may demand significant concessions from Israel and the United States. The topmost being concrete steps towards a two-state solution and the removal of the blockade in Gaza. The establishment of a Palestinian state has been Riyadh's official stance for 2 decades, and this demand is making a comeback in their official rhetoric. But this isn't just about diplomatic negotiations. It's about the hearts and minds of the Saudi public. A recent poll in Saudi Arabia showed a formidable 96% of respondents believe Arab countries should cut all ties with Israel in protest against its military action in Gaza. This staggering majority underscores the deep-seated sentiment among the Saudi populace against normalization, unless Palestinian rights are upheld. So, while Saudi Arabia signals its openness to normalization, it's clear that the path there is steeped in complexities. The Saudi public's strong sentiment against normalization, coupled with the demand for a Palestinian state, are significant hurdles to overcome. Clearly, any normalization deal would need to take into account the strong public sentiment and the rights of Palestinians. But how has the recent conflict in Gaza affected these potential talks? The October 7th attack on Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza have thrown a wrench in the gears of the normalization talks. The conflict caused Saudi Arabia to press pause on these discussions, underscoring the volatile nature of the region and the intricacies involved in the path to peace. According to Hamas, the war in Gaza has resulted in the tragic loss of over 23,000 Palestinian lives. Israel, meanwhile, believes that 107 hostages from the October 7th attack are still being held within Gaza's borders. These distressing figures shed light on the high stakes of these talks and the urgent need for resolution. But amidst the chaos, there's also a glimmer of hope. Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the UK has stated that any normalization deal with Israel would entail a Palestinian-Israeli peace plan, and he did not rule out the possibility of Hamas being part of a future Palestinian state. Given the turmoil in Gaza, Saudi Arabia has the luxury to wait for the right conditions for a deal. And how does the US see this potential normalization deal? Well, let's delve into that. The United States, under the leadership of the Biden administration, is firmly in the mix here. They have a clear stand that any deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel should not come at the expense of Palestinian rights. The creation of a Palestinian state is not just a footnote, but a crucial element of this conversation. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been transparent about the ongoing talks, emphasizing the shared interest in pursuing normalization. Yet, the US is also mindful of the concessions Saudi Arabia might demand from Israel and the US itself. These could include concrete steps towards a two-state solution and the removal of the Gaza blockade. This stance underscores the US's commitment to balance its strategic interests in the region with its advocacy for human rights and the rule of law. A successful normalization deal, therefore, could be seen as a testament to this balance. For the Biden administration, brokering this deal could be seen as a major foreign policy victory. So, where does this leave us now? We've dissected the potential normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, a move that could redefine the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. We've also delved into the possible concessions that Saudi Arabia might demand from Israel and the US, such as concrete steps towards a two-state solution and the lifting of the Gaza blockade. The impact of the Gaza conflict cannot be overstated. It has caused a pause in the normalization talks and taken a significant human toll. The US perspective adds yet another layer to this complex situation. The Biden administration sees a normalization deal as a major foreign policy victory, yet underscores that it should not come at the expense of Palestinian rights or the creation of a Palestinian state. Remember, public opinion in Saudi Arabia is critical. The overwhelming majority believes Arab countries should sever all contacts with Israel as a protest against its military action in Gaza. In this intricate dance of diplomacy, Saudi Arabia's position is clear. It can afford to wait for the right conditions for a deal with Israel. As we continue to observe the developments, one thing is certain: the potential normalization of diplomatic ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel could significantly reshape the dynamics in the Middle East.